In these presentations, I would like to focus on how cultivation of indigenous, nutrient-rich, traditional crops can be consumed as both staple and vegetables that can support family self-consumption and support biodiversity conservation for overall household nutrition security of the rural poor household in the remote mountains of Nepal. This is funded by Global Environment Facility and United Nations Environment Program, working in the high mountain regions of Nepal. Firstly, I will be briefly presenting on introduction and then objectives and methodologies of the study. Of course, survey findings and some of the regression results from the econometric models, and constraints and issues on production, consumption, and maintenance of crop biodiversity in the mountains, and of course, conclusion and implication. Well, as all of you know, mountains of Nepal have highest rate of poverty and food insecurity. Of course, also nutrition insecurity. If you see the recent Nepal Living Standard Survey 2010-11, it shows that mountains have about 42% of poverty rate as compared to 25% average for Nepal. And of course, 23% for hills at Tarai and 24% for hills. So the food insecurity, nutrition insecurity, and poverty is very high in the mountains, high mountain regions of Nepal, and agriculture production system is very traditional and subsistence oriented, and there's a very limited agriculture development support from formal sector agencies, from government, and even from non-formal sectors also very limited because of remoteness, isolations, and so many other factors. And also mountains are very diverse, complex, fragile, and very steep slopes. Because of that, production system is very challenging and difficult. However, mountains of Nepal are hot spots for agriculture biodiversity, maintaining unique crop biodiversity that are important for, globally important for, innovation in agriculture and adaptation for climate change. Well, if you see, I'm just focusing on three important crops of indigenous crops for mountain region, because these three crops, buckwheat, beans, and amaranths, are only consumed as staple grains, but also consumed as vegetables, green vegetables. So, and these are very important for high mountain remote areas because, access to other vegetable source of vegetables is very limited because of subsistence production, no market access, market difficulties. And also, buckwheat is very important, #1 crop for Mustang and Manang, and also it is second important for Dolpa. So, but these crops are neglected from the formal sector for research and development. And also beans also is very, consumed as both green pods and also grains in the high mountain. And is also underutilized crops, very nutritious crops. And it's becoming cash crops in the mountain regions recently, particularly in Karnali, part of Nepal and Mustang. So these crops are major source of green vegetables for high mountain regions where subsistence production system occurs, where family produce and consume themselves, where there's no market access for other source of green leafy vegetables. So, and these are some of the, I already explained, and some of these crops like buckwheat is also consumed as a dried vegetable during lean season in the winter, particularly in the high mountain region when the winter season is very long and harsh. So people use it as a dried vegetables. So I'm just comparing the nutrient content of these crops as compared to major food staples, rice, wheat, or maize. If you see here, the amaranths and buckwheat and beans are very nutrient rich. I just highlighted some of those in the red colors. And especially amaranth is very rich in phosphorus, particularly micronutrients, dietary fibers. And these crops are gluten-free, as you all of you know, gluten-free, and contain rare amino acids and also antioxidants, which are not mentioned here. So compared to rice, they have very high. If you see the green leaves, nutrient content of the green leaves part, green pod parts, see, for amaranth leaves, buckwheat leaves, bean pods have very high compared to, if you see the cabbage cabbage, which we commonly consume as a green vegetables. And they have high content of phosphorus and also even calcium and other nutrients. This is the source from our Department of Food Technology and Quality Control. And so objective of this study is therefore is to analyze farm household decisions and factors influencing cultivation of these three important crops, traditional crops, and also explore factors influencing the consumption of these crops and consumption. What factors influence this consumption, these crops, particularly socioeconomic, agroecological, and market factors, and explore relationship between production of this production diversity and household consumption, and also maintenance of crop biodiversity. So this is a conceptual framework. If you see the household nutrition security, particularly in the mountain region, is supported by agriculture biodiversity. Diversity of the species, cultivars, and ecosystems promotes production resilience of the production system. Also, the diversity of the available food available in the market systems, and thereby helps to access the dietary diversity consumption system, and ultimately into nutrition security. So we normally, the pathway for here in the high mountain region where market is very poor, the pathway for nutrition is through self-consumption, in households' own production and consumption. So methodology, here this study we used representative sample survey of 4 districts for remote focusing on high mountain areas, and sample about 328 farm household covering one village development council, which earlier one. Now we have rural municipality, but we use in 2014-15 survey covering one village development committee from every districts, and using at least proportional random sampling of at least 72 household from each side. It ranges from 90 to based on the population of the village, and also combined by participatory rural appraisal, field monitoring, visiting, stakeholder consultations, and other approach. So our nutrition security is assessed from own production and household sufficiency and consumption of green leafy vegetables and pulse production. So the analytical model mainly used regression models to analyze the consumption and production choices of the households and food sufficiency status. And I used probability regression model for household decision to consume the vegetable, as a green vegetable or not, these 3 crops. And also, and Poisson count regression models to analyze the diversity of the varieties cultivated in this crop by the household and factors influencing those cultivations. These are the sites. So you could see the mountain areas. Humla is one of the most remote part of Nepal, as all of you Nepali people know it, and Lamjung and Dolakha focusing on higher altitude above 1500 meters. So if you see the household socio-demographic information from survey, and in the Humla is, farm size is very small. This is in Ropani, Nepali. This 1 Ropani equals to around 500 square meter. So 4.4 is almost 1/5 of the hectare. So farm size is very small, tiny, fragmented. And as an order average for 4 districts were around ½ hectare, but in Humla is very small, tiny, and farm size are scattered into different parcels. And family size is almost around 6 average, but ranges from 5 to 6, which is almost same for the national. Okay, and we have a female decision maker is very low here. You can see the gender roles and decision making. Mainly joint decision making is very high. Female decision making is less by side. And the varietal diversity, when you see the richness of the varieties cultivated by a household. So in case of beans, it's very high. Others are okay. If you see the household food sufficiency level, it's very low in the Humla, all in terms of food sufficiency, leafy vegetable sufficiency, even pulse sufficiency as compared to other sites. If you see the status of production and consumption of crops, so household producing and consuming, if you see it here, For Amaranth, almost, Humla has a lot of high proportion of household produce and consume, but lesser in other sites. But for in case of buckwheat, it is very high, consumption is very high in those sites, but production is relatively less. So regression model, so we have some of the factors influencing. If you see here, farm size has very impact on the farmers' decision to consume or not. Of course, in the agroecology, particularly high mountains have a high probability of growing these crops. And in case of Poisson, count of here I use the diversity of cultivars grown by the households. Here age is important for Amaranth, and for beans it's not so negative. And for the crop area allocation is very important for this crops for maintaining cultivar diversity. So regression results, so I have already mentioned, so I don't need to explain here. Positive and significant relationship for self-consumption and also the crop varietal diversity and area under specific crops. So constant and major constant is traditional knowledge on the use of green and dried vegetable is declining because of the cultural change, change in food culture, migration, commercialization, and of course, the climate change, drought, severe drought in the high mountain. And also investment in research and development is very less in those crops, not supported by farmer sector. So we are losing the knowledge and practices for consuming and producing these crops. And our agriculture and economic development policies are favoring major staples and cash crops, thereby putting disincentive for cultivating those crops in the remote mountains. So whether it is subsidies or price or credit or any, these are not supporting. Our food subsidies, transport subsidies, and food in the high mountain has reduced incentive for cultivating these traditional crops. So the conclusion is households, those who are more likely to consume green vegetables are mainly located in high mountain, particularly the Karnali region, Jumla and Humla sites farmers are more likely to produce and consume. And the key factors are farm size, agroecology, and women members present in the households are important. So therefore, the suggestion is, recommendation is that increased production and diversification of traditional crop with available technology and practices can enhance consumption and thereby maintaining crop biodiversity and nutrition of the households. So we need a diverse set of choices of varieties, technologies for these crops. Of course, local and national marketing strategy that link production of these traditional crops and linking with food culture can enhance consumption and improve household nutrition. Thank you very much.